Welcome to ONNpoint. I'm Tim Murphy, and my guest today is Joanne Robertson. Hello, Joanne.
Hi, Tim.
Welcome to ONNtv.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Joanne is a local author and illustrator. Which came first for you, the words or the drawing? Where did you start in your life? Were you more of a writer or more of an illustrator?
Probably, I've been drawing since I was little, but
You've
not
been drawing
writing.
since you were little?
Yeah.
So did you always draw your own stuff? I mean, did you know what I mean? Like, were you an original artist always, or did you just start off with paint, like coloring books and stuff?
No, I always drew my own stuff, but I put it away for a long time because our generation wasn't supposed to be artists. They were supposed to be secretaries for men. So I didn't do art for a long time. So I just picked it up again in the last 10 years or so.
Really?
Yeah, and I used to draw lifelike. Now there's not enough time, so that's why I draw
You drew lifelike.
I used to, but not anymore, obviously.
And now, the book, this is The Water Walker. This is the book that Joanne has written, the award-winning book that Joanne has written. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was very recent. You were down in Toronto to receive an award.
Yeah, from First Nation Communities Read. So that was, and I got to meet Tanya Talega, who wrote Seven Fallen Feathers, which everyone should read.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
I haven't read it yet.
You have to read it.
Seven Fallen Feathers?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what it's about a little bit?
It's about some students in Thunder Bay. A lot of the students, because they don't have high schools in their communities, have to travel down to Thunder Bay away from their families. And so they died in the river or passed away. So it's about all the circumstances leading up to that and how no one looked into it. It was only left to the families to research and look into how their children passed away. So it's just
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a book you have to read.
Canadian author, obviously.
Tanya,
Yeah. First Nation. That's why she was at that award ceremony. Did she? So you got to meet her?
yeah.
Had you met her before?
No. I just finished reading her book like 45 minutes before I met her too.
No kidding?
So it was really fresh.
Very timely.
Yeah.
Okay, so the inspiration for The Water Walker came from?
My friend Josephine Mundaman.
Josephine Mundaman, and she goes by Nokomis Josephine Mundaman,
Yeah.
which means grandmother?
Yeah.
Okay. She's the grandmother of Ojibwe.
Yep.
How did you meet her?
When I was in university, I graduated 8 years ago, but I think it was in my second year, I started working on a project called the Empty Glass for Water campaign because I just heard about the drinking water crisis in our communities, and which is really sad. But so I started working on creating awareness around that, but just a little back of that. I was adopted, so I was raised by Canadians in Southern Ontario, so I didn't have a big connection to my Anishinaabe family, which I met in my mid to late 20s, I think now. So I had a lot of catching up to do, so I kept putting my tobacco down and asking for people who could help me learn about water and the water crisis in our communities. And the next semester, Josephine walked into my class. She had registered at Shingwak Kinamagegimig to learn the language, so that's how I met her.
She originally from Manitoulin,
Yeah.
is that right?
Wickwamacong. Yeah.
Oh, okay, and then now she's presently in Thunder Bay.
Yeah,
is
she's
that
lived
right?
in Thunder Bay for a long time now.
So you met her when she was going back to school with you. You were students together.
Yeah.
Wow. And so wait a minute. When you said you were raised by a white family. How did you even learn about tobacco and all that kind of stuff? Where did that start for you? When did that journey start?
Well, I met them. I'm 58 now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I met them my family when I was 27. So it's been happening gradually.
Oh, okay.
Over the years. So
You're not kidding. A lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
You sort of told me the story about your adoptive parents. You're trying their best to get some indigenous culture, but it was really so foreign to them they wouldn't even know where to start. You said you used to drive around reserves and stuff.
Yeah, we drove around reserve, and they said when I found my birth family, they're really sweet about it. They had been doing their own research on their own. So when I told them that someone had located my birth mother, they had all of these things that they had been saving up, like here's a person you can talk to about a status card, here's this and this and this, but we hadn't really talked about it before that.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were really good about it.
Cool. Okay, we have
Yeah.
to take a commercial break.
Okay.
When we come back, I want to sort of pick up to where you were going to school, and then you met you met Josephine, and how that progressed into the learning more about the water walkers and becoming. Do you consider yourself a water walker?
Water coordinator.
Oh, water coordinator. There you
I
go.
only walk 45 minutes, so.
More with Joanne Robertson after we come back from this break on ONNpoint with Tim Murphy. Stay tuned. Back with local author and illustrator Joanne Robertson. The Water Walker is the book, the award-winning book. Second press already.
Third.
Going to already in its third.
Yeah, and Scholastic just got it too for Canada.
That's pretty remarkable, isn't it? I mean, fantastic. So you're going to school now, you're at, let's say, we're backing up now, so you're going to Algoma University, and you're taking the language course? Is that what you're taking?
Yeah, I took graphic design and native arts and culture.
Okay, so you did more than one.
Yeah, and language was in there. Yeah.
But language is where you met Josephine
Yeah.
Mandamin.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josephine. So you'd already had a concern about the water because you became aware of, oh my gosh, do you know how many communities there are in this?
I'm not
that are doing
sure.
without
Sometimes
water?
it's a third of the communities in Canada. Sometimes it's more than that.
Without fresh drinking
water. And there's lots of kids who've never ever gone to a tap in their home to have fresh water.
There was one I read about 23 years. They've been under a boil water advisory. They have it. So you have people who have never in their lives been able to drink water from a tap in their home.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the bottled water. Now, that's a whole other thing, and especially when you talk to Josephine about how she feels about bottled water and the toxics that come from the plastics and how water that's in life, she says, can't her mother told her life can't be supported in plastic. Nothing lives in plastic. You wrap a human body in plastic, you're going to die. Same thing with the water. You put water in the plastic. Water has its own life, and it can't survive, and it becomes moldy, and you can become sick from certain bottled waters even, right?
Yeah, and one thing too about that is because our communities don't have drinking water, they use bottled water.
They use bottled water, which is also not great.
Yeah, terrible.
Terrible. So your awareness becomes heightened about this water issues, and you've been basically praying and asking for guidance and how can I make a difference, and boom, into your classroom walks Josephine Mandamin. How did that relationship develop then between the two of you?
Well, it didn't start till I graduated in 2010, and then in 2011, that's when the Four Directions Water Walk started, and
that's when they went to the 4 different corners of all the oceans.
The 4 salt waters and walked to Lake Superior. So I volunteered to coordinate that, and I'd never water walked before, so I didn't know what I was doing, but, but I survived to.
You threw yourself into it.
Yeah.
So now Josephine had been water walking at that point. When was her first one?
2003.
2003.
Yeah.
Maybe we should actually explain what the story behind water walkers is. Can you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Josephine's been walking since 2003, and it's to raise awareness about water, and it's about water protection. And basically, that's it. She heard a prophecy from Grand Chief Eddie Benton Benet that in the future, water would be ounce per ounce as expensive as gold.
This was a sort of a prediction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and realistically, it's true.
And so she felt that he was talking directly to her, and so she wanted to do something about it, and this is what they came up with.
So, and the concept is that are women generally in the Indigenous culture, First Nations, are they generally the protectors of the water?
Yeah, women
sort of the
protect
role?
the water, and we're all born of water, so that's the women's role. And in the Medewan Lodge, the men take care of the fire. So traditionally, those are the 2 roles that Josephine practices.
Okay, and then the male role is to support the women in their efforts, which we're going to get into. Actually, it's called the Eagle. What's the staff called?
The Eagle Staff.
The Eagle Staff. is generally carried by the male.
Yeah.
And the bucket holding the water is generally carried by the female.
Correct.
Okay, so when we come back, let's talk a little bit about how that all transpired and how Josephine at times had to do double duty. And how you drew her on the cover of your book doing both, which is not necessarily tradition, but a necessity. Stay tuned for more On Point with Tim Murphy and Joanne Robertson right after this. I'm just looking at the story here, and actually, there's the picture of Josephine as she's hearing from the chief. One day, an ounce of water will be as expensive as an ounce of gold, and then she has her. We actually look at the reality of it. These are great drawings, by the way. We can see all the different issues that are happening with wasting water, brushing our teeth, running water while we brush our teeth. Now, what a waste that is! All that perfectly good water going down the drain. Get your toothbrush wet, brush your teeth, spit and rinse, right? Watering our lawns where we don't need to, and all of the toxics, the dead fish. Oh, and she talks about that on her water. That was a heartbreaking speech that I heard her talk about when she walked around Lake Ontario in southern Ontario, when Josephine did the water walk down there, and they saw the pollution. And she actually said she felt the weight of the water, that it was heavier water, and because of the toxins that were in it, she could just naturally. Their bodies were tired. So the idea is she's got a copper bucket and she's walking just to educate people and make them aware that we have a water crisis and that we have to take care of this natural resource. So where was the first walk? Lake Superior?
I have to look, actually.
I think it might have been Lake Superior.
Yeah, Lake Superior, definitely.
Was her first walk, and that was about 2003. 2003.
Yep.
So she's got this copper, and why copper pot?
It used to be mined up there, plus copper purifies water.
Copper purifies.
Yeah.
And you told the story about when she was, Josephine, doing this speech to students.
Yeah, when the book was released when we were in Toronto, there were about 100 kids in the audience, and one little kid stood up and said, where did you get your copper pail? And she was sitting in her grandma chair, and she speaks really quiet, and she had her microphone, and she said, Kijiji. It was really funny.
Everybody's expecting some sort of, prophetic, this was passed down through generations and generations. Kijiji. So, but it does the trick. So she carries the copper pot with the water, and does she go from one body of water to another carrying the water? Or
usually they walk around one body of water, and when they're carrying the water, they're always in ceremony, so they're always singing and praying for the water. So is it different prayers and different songs? Are there a collection of different things, or is it always the same? She has a collection of songs, and when different people carry the water, they probably have their own songs, depending on where they come from. But
she has always sung and prayed to the water and thanked the water. She's always been very mindful of that. Now she's just taking it to the next level by raising awareness. And no money. I mean, this is totally grassroots. Telling the stories, sharing the knowledge of what's going on with the crisis and raising awareness, but relying on the kindness of strangers to a certain extent. Is that true?
Yeah, and so people, usually they get up at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So people who take care of them, they get up with them and they feed them, or they'll bring them Timmy's on the road, which is always their favorite thing in the world.
Right. She talks about people showing up with sandwiches and hamburgers and French fries, and just the kindness of their heart. They ask her, "What are you doing?" And she explains, "I'm walking for water. I'm walking for the water. I will do it for the water."
Yeah.
Which is why you said you would do this interview. Joanne said, "I don't really do television and stuff, but I'll do it for the water," which is the running theme of the book. I'll do it for the water.
Yeah.
She spoke also about her disappointment to a certain extent at the lack of participation by the male population. She said that in one of her videos, saying, one of the things I talked to the chief about was she had a meeting and she was talking to some chiefs and saying, the guys aren't really holding up their end. Which is why she was having to walk with the Eagle staff, because there were no guys.
Yeah. So one of the things with that was in the beginning in 2011, there weren't a lot of male walkers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and her walked prior to that too, but actually last year and in 2015, a lot more men have been coming forward. So they have been picking up their work.
She's got a lot of power, this woman. When she speaks, things happen. I'm looking forward to meeting her. I did reach out to her, and I believe that there may be a chance that I get to talk to her in person sometime. So we have to go to another break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the book itself, how long it took, about the story in it, because it really is sort of Josephine's story. Okay, so more with Joanne Robertson when we come back on Point. Thanks for sticking around. We'll be right back after this. Joanne, this book is actually, it's a children's story book, but I think that it's great for adults too. Personally, I really love the story. Did you design it sort of to be for all ages, or did you have a particular age group in mind when you did it?
When I wrote it for the water walkers, because during the 2011 walk, I promised a lot of people that I would archive the water walk. So they were in my mind when I was doing it.
So from beginning to end, you say that the concept of the book has been gone on for the whole duration of all these water walks, but and the illustrations, that was time consuming?
Yeah, the illustrations, they took the longest, the coloring mostly, but I sketched it out fairly quickly because it's a timeline of the walks. But
now, the other thing that I'm always interested in is the language, and I love the fact that you really incorporate. Is it Anishinaabe? That language is throughout the book. But to help us, you've also created a bit of a glossary, which is fantastic. Not just the words, but also their pronunciations. So I can now say Sema, which is sacred tobacco, right? And so she talks in here, well, in the book, in the story, your character, Nokomis, grandma, she has a dream and she contacts her friends. She sits down with some of her lady friends, and they say, "Here's the problem. We need to do this, right? We need to raise awareness." Is that really what happened with Josephine?
Actually, the 2011 water walk, it was a woman in the East Coast who had the dream.
She had the dream, and the word for dream is. I know it's in your book. The word for dream is. Bawajkin.
Yeah.
Bawajkin, dream. So she had a dream about the water too. And then she contacted.
And then she shared, she's the one who had the dream about the 4 directions.
The 4 directions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so did Josephine do that? Which direction was Josephine?
Josephine did all the directions. She started, all the directions happened at once, but the west started first because they had the longest to walk. So she started walking with them for a while, and then the south, and then the east, and then the north. And the reason it went that way was just for the length of time walking.
And she has walked as many as 4.5 million, what? What is the number? 4.5 million, 4,500,000 steps in one walk alone.
That was the last walk.
4,500,000 steps in her sneakers. Is that she's famous for wearing her sneakers? I wonder how many pairs of sneakers she's gone through.
I asked her. I have a couple numbers, but yeah,
Really? A lot.
Yeah.
And does she always? Do people tend to gather around and walk with her as she goes? Does she attract a crowd?
Not at 2:30 in the morning.
No.
But
Does she walk all those hours?
in some communities, there's dozens of people who follow her, and there's a lot of protocols to water walking.
There are?
Yeah, so it's most respectful just to follow and learn first before, and then when they feel you're ready, then they'll hand off the water pail to you.
Oh, because as you say, this is a
It's ceremony.
It's ceremony. So have you been? Do you know the ceremony? Do you know all the ins and outs now?
I'm better at coordinating. Not that I'm great at it, because but I've only walked for 45 minutes once. But I have water walked. Yes.
How heavy is the pail?
Not very heavy. There's only a little bit of water in it because you don't want to spill it, right?
Oh, okay.
And then even in the south, when they walk, they cover it with cloth so that it doesn't evaporate as quickly.
All right. Now, so the book itself, it's in schools now too? Is it being carried in schools?
Yeah, some school boards have bought it. I've donated, well, not myself personally, but a retired school teacher bought a case and donated it to the schools in the Sioux. And we visited schools across Ontario, and It's doing very well. So
That's excellent. Okay, we have to go to another commercial.
Okay.
And when we come back, more with Joanne Robertson and The Water Walker. Is this available? How do we get a hold of this book?
You can get it online from Second Story Press or locally, the Family Tree or Shabby Motley, I think.
Oh, we just had some guests from Shabby Motley in. That's a great little store. All right, so stay tuned for more of The Water Walker and Joanne Robertson after this message. I'm looking now, as we get near the end of the book, we see the Nokomis, that's Josephine, says she went through 3 knees and 11 pairs of sneakers walking for nibby, not what nibby, which is water. And I see the little picture of her there resting her poor tired feet in her new knees and her cats. Does she really have cats?
Yeah, and when I wrote the book, she loves her cats and she misses them when she's walking. And so I asked for a couple pictures of the cats so that I drew them right. And I'm on dial-up, I was at the time. So her husband sent me over 300 pictures of her cats. Totally, it took all night, crashed the system. It was hilarious.
300 pictures of her cats.
And I had this cat sitting up on the back of the chair, and she said, no, he doesn't sit there. So I redrew
you had to
and
change
colored
it.
the whole thing.
That's funny. So she's had her knees replaced, seriously?
Yeah, she's had this one replaced, and it got messed up again because she walked on it. I did another water walk.
She is how old now? Or she's been walking since she was in her 60s.
She started walking when she was 60, and last year she retired at 74.
Holy smokes. Now, the other thing I want to ask you is, so tell me again where we can get these books. We can go online.
To Second Story Press.
Second Story Press, which is in its 3rd press now.
Yeah.
Or
Shabby Motley.
Shabby Motley.
Or the Family Tree in Garden
The Family Tree in Garden River.
Yeah.
Excellent. The other thing that we ask at the end of the book is, when it comes to the water, what are we going to do about it? So what do we need to do, Joanne? How are we going to take care of this resource?
If we look at it like it's alive and not call it a resource, that's
a start.
That's a start. How we look at the water. Everyone can come up with different ways. Like when we look at just brushing our teeth and turning the tap off, that's a minor thing. I think we're beyond that. I think we have to start pressuring our governments, because I think the problem's bigger than just what each individual can do. Like if working together, we can do big things, but.
Yeah, us taking care of the water is one thing, but getting fresh water to those communities is critical.
Yeah, fresh drinking water to the communities versus buying a pipeline would have been a good start.
Boom. Mic drop. So rather than buying a corporation so that they can put the oil pipeline through, it would have been nice if they bought a corporation to actually put some water into these communities. 23 years of boil water advisory. People who've never, that's 3rd world.
Yeah, my friend told me one of her relations in her community, they took, in the bathroom, they needed an extra bedroom, so they just took out the tub and the sink and the toilet and everything because it's useless, and put in a bedroom in there. Like that's a reality of
life in Canada. Life in Canada.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be. So we contact our politicians. We make some noise. We say that this is not right for anybody in our country to be living without fresh water.
Yeah, and also Great Lakes. We're working to get them recognized. Lots of corporations have rights as persons, and the Great Lakes should have that too. So we're working towards that too.
Do you know, have you ever heard the names Joni and Gary Mcguffin?
Yes, they're our neighbors.
They're neighbors. They work with the Lake Superior Water Conservancy. They're coming in tomorrow, I believe. They just finished a whole tour of Gargantua, and they're bringing some photos in, and those are some great people too. They appreciate the beauty and the importance of water.
Yes, they do.
Joanne, this is a beautiful book. I highly recommend that you go out and pick this up for yourself, for your children, for your family. Thanks for spending time with us today, Joanne, and for bringing this to our attention in such a beautiful and creative way.
Okay, thanks.
You'll get a beautiful spirit too. Thanks for joining us. Joanne Robertson, The Water Walker. Get your copy and take care of not a resource, a life force. Ooh, Joanne! I'm inspired. We'll see you next time on Point. Thanks for being with us today.